All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. We have two presentations in this session. We're going to hold questions to the end of both of our presentations. So ours from NC State and NYU, and then Yale, right? Okay. So we'll get started first. So hi, my name is Shannon Ricci. I'm the Associate Head of Data Science Services at North Carolina State University. I'm here today with my colleagues, Michelle Thompson Gumbs. She's the Senior Geographic Information Systems Specialist at NYU. And then Mara Blake is the Head of Data Science Services at NC State. And today we're going to share how researchers and students across campus can get data help with academic libraries as the home for data science support across disciplines. So what's the need for data science support? Across campus and across disciplines, we see researchers needing to use emerging technologies and analysis approaches to answer their research questions. However, data science support is often inaccessible. Training, consulting, and other resources can be limited in terms of scope of services provided, siloed within departments, so only accessible for certain members of the campus community, or fee-based, so having to have grants funded or allocated to this type of work. So we believe there's a vision for data science support at scale, where we can support emerging technologies and analysis approaches across disciplines, make that openly available for everyone on campus at no cost to them, and in doing so, enable data science and research by bridging skill gaps. So how do we offer data science support across campus? Let's kind of zoom out and look at the data science research lifecycle. So researchers on campus are going to have to do the following kind of groups of steps when they're doing any sort of research project, from planning the research, acquiring the data, processing that data, so data cleaning, data preparation, analyzing that data, producing scholarly output, so manuscripts, presentations, and then preserving the output of that work. And so data science services then aim to support areas of the research data lifecycle. But traditionally, many libraries focus support on acquiring, preserving, and planning lifecycle stages, but we believe that researchers should have support for the entirety of the research lifecycle, including activities related to analysis, methodological approaches, and technical proficiencies. Oh, sorry, I didn't advance that slide. So our competitive edge is data science support in the libraries, right? So this is where we can offer support in an open way. So why libraries? Libraries are central. They're open to all disciplines across campus. They're typically no cost to patrons, reducing barriers to access. Libraries' commitment to privacy creates a positive and low-pressure environment to seek help, so many might not feel like they should reach out for help if it's fee-based and kind of open to the university. And then libraries are places of innovation, so libraries can respond to the changing needs of the university community and meet patrons where they are. And so today we're going to talk about how our programs at NYU and NC State offer this support to campus, the similarities between our programs and some of the differences that we have. So we'll start with the similarities. So both of our programs offer these core pillars of service. So we have workshops and training, data labs and spaces, and then consulting. For workshops and training, this is a series of sessions that have to do with the data science lifecycle. So data visualization, data cleaning, kind of those topics. But we also offer support on different tools like programming in R or Python. And we offer these in a series of open workshops, open to all of campus. They might be embedded in a course integrated training session, offered to different sessions for campus groups, or as part of special programming. We also manage data labs and spaces in the libraries, and these are computer labs with specialized hardware and software for data work. So think about it as the go-between between someone's laptop and having to use something like a high-performance computing cluster, which requires advanced technical skills in order to use. So we offer this support for them in terms of just computer workstations. There's also software that might be licensed like individually or not have a campus license, or operating system that they don't have individually that they might need to use for this software. And so in addition to those computer labs, we also have teaching spaces where we teach these topics. And the third pillar, and that's the one that we'll spend the most time talking about today, is consulting. So this is one-on-one and group consultations or scoped project works on any kind of range of the data science lifecycle or tool. So at NC State, a little bit different than NYU, and Michelle will talk about NYU in a minute. Administratively, we're housed in the libraries, but we do collaborate with the Data Science and AI Academy when it comes to consulting. Our service scope is on the kind of life cycle stages of finding, preparing, analyzing, and visualizing data. We have specialties in GIS and maps, coding and environment setup, and software selection and access. There are other departments in our library that is charged with other things like data management. We offer consulting, open workshops, and specialized data labs, and it's open to all affiliates at no cost to them. For staff, we have a team, I think, of 6 non-tenure track faculty librarians, a staff specialist, and then PhD student consultants. And now, I'll switch over to Michelle.
Hi, everyone. So at NYU Data Services, our administrative arm, we're a joint department between NYU Libraries and NYU IT. Our specialists provide support across the entire data research lifecycle, from data management to analysis to preservation. We employ a collaborative team model, leveraging the expertise of faculty librarians, libraries and IT staff, and student specialists from both undergraduate and graduate, but mainly graduate students. So let's focus a bit more on our consulting arms of our services. Across different institutions, data services and data science consulting programs may look different, but they're all shaped by common variables or aspects, and these choices determine who we serve, how we operate, and how we're funded. So think about the administrative home. Where is the program housed? Is it libraries, IT, or maybe a mix of both? Is it limited access or open to the entire institution in terms of availability? Supported topics, how broad or specialized our methods and disciplines are. Some programs opt for a more methodological approach, while others expand into analytical and or technology or software-based support. The scope of the support also can entertain like drop-in meetings, scheduled appointments, scope projects, or long-term embedded work with a specific researcher, department, or even a research team. Funding, is it central institution funding? Is it a cost recovery model or a mix of the two? Staffing, as you see from our programs, we have a combo of professional staff and students, but how that mix happens, what percentage goes where, can vary from different programs. And major stakeholders, folks like yourselves, the leaders that we continually engage with to sustain and grow our consulting program. That's really important. So funded by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation, a group of 3 different institutions with 3 different data science or data services consulting programs pooled our collective knowledge and experience to write a beginner's guide for higher ed data science consulting focused on the graduate student staffing model. We wanted to create a monograph that delineated practices and lessons learned for the broader community. So that's what we're here today. So here we come to the crux of the issue. Why graduate students? I ask you, why not graduate students? Graduate students arrive with solid technical foundations in things like statistics, machine learning, GIS, you name it. They're coming in with more skills every day, and they are in touch with their peers, right? Consulting skills. When they come to our program, they might not necessarily have these skills. Maybe they have like tutoring or a background, but we encourage these students to build on those skills. We give them support in terms of practice teaching and practice consulting, shadowing full-timers so they get a better idea about how they can do the consulting work and broaden beyond their specialty. When they come into the programs, they might have a specific subject expertise, but when they leave the program, they're going to have a broader expertise across the board. Communications and teaching, serious emphasis is put on communication. I don't know if you've noticed students coming into your libraries, they're kind of a little bit less talkative. We have to be able to communicate with them and have our students communicate with them as well. And then finally, career alignment and the pipeline support. This is more than just a job for our graduate student consultants. This is a way for them to get training that is designed to foster a critical interdisciplinary perspective, which is a key professional development benefit of their role. In return, we get highly engaged consultants who see the work as meaningful, and that shows up in the quality of support our patrons receive. So what are the main considerations when starting and running a data science consulting program? Let's see. Okay. In our manual, we outlined 7 key considerations for your program, staffed mainly by graduate students. First is scoping and planning. Given your student and/or research population, what type of program does your campus need? Then more broad planning for your program parameters. What is the scope and what is your budget? Hiring on your campus. How does the student-employee hiring process occur in your institution? Training and onboarding, personal favorite of mine. If you know any of my graduate students, you know that they spend a lot of time with their onboarding because we need to get them up to speed with our program standards and objectives. Service logistics, how will you provide your program services to your institution and your community? Managing and policy development, supervision of your employees, engagement of your employees in an increasingly difficult time to engage with folks. And finally, assessment. How will you know if your program is doing what it needs to do? This is a lot to consider, right? This is especially when you're starting your program out, but this is why we created our practical guide, and I'm going to plug it here. Graduate Students in Data Science Consulting, a Blueprint for Success. Okay. So let's get into some of those practicalities with a couple of examples from NYU and then from NC State. So at NYU, our team of 10 student specialists work with our professional staff to provide appointments, teach classes and embedded tutorials, and conduct data services related project work. Our students work 20 hours maximum per the week during spring and fall, and 35 hours maximum during our J term and summer terms. These are on-campus student employee positions, and our graduate student specialists are eligible for benefits through the union, the graduate students at NYU. A large portion of our graduate students' work involves one-to-one consultations or small group consultations with NYU students, faculty, staff, and researchers. They operate mainly for this consultation work in the Bobst Library Research Commons in our data services lab. We also have a large team of professional staff. It's growing larger by the minute, it seems, who provide one-on-one or group consultations to members of the NYU community. We come from a variety of academic and professional backgrounds, and those varied experiences help our team to provide comprehensive support to our graduate student consultants, who are the front line of our consultation services, but also to our patrons who we see during consultations. Most of our professional staff act as service leads to our student specialists. Like we have quantitative service, GIS service, data management service, and they provide the students with subject matter expertise. So if our students are struggling with something to convey that to a patron, they can come talk to their service lead or other full-time staff members to get some guidance. Our professional staff also serve in a mentoring role for our students because we're looking at like a holistic approach. It's not just your technical skills that we're looking for. We want to help bolster up your academic work and give you some kind of better opportunities to go out and develop professionally while you're with us. For employment-related matters like payroll, timesheets, there is the Data Services Student Employee Manager, which is me. In the past, our data services approach, like we kind of focus a lot on technical skills and those aspects of consulting. We had like really strong student consultants who would help patrons with software bugs or analysis issues like GIS, quantitative, and some qualitative. Over time, our approach has become more proactive and broadened quite a bit, aligning with the changing needs of the NYU community. This proactive approach allows us to provide consultation services to our patrons in a variety of venues and formats. No longer are we stuck in the lab. Like we can expand our services and expand our support, which has been really beneficial for the NYU community. So how do people get help from data services? Our specialists meet with them in a multi-channel approach. We have in-person consultations that happen at the data services desk via appointments or drop-ins right in our lab. There's also digital format with emails, Ask a Librarian chat service so for that instantaneous communication and quick problem solving. We also use Discord because we're not old. We can use Discord and chat with our patrons in like that kind of instantaneous fashion as well, meeting them where they are, right? And then also remote, we still do use a telephone. Yeah, surprising, right? Sometimes a patron will actually call us on the phone and chat with us usually for like, oh, my Qualtrics survey isn't running, can you fix this right now? Or video conferencing, we do a lot of Zoom work. So we're actually able to meet like the global campus needs because we're not just situated in New York, we're also Shanghai, Abu Dhabi, et cetera. We even have a newsletter to inform our community about the service offerings that we have, including our one-to-one consultations. So who comes to data services? College of Arts and Science, Center for Urban Science and Progress, Global Public Health, Social Work. We see everybody, and they love us and we love them. So what is the impact of our student consultants? I told you we have a large team. We're impacting the NYU community, not only the patrons, but also the students themselves. Over the past 14 plus years, we've trained over 150 students on consulting and teaching of these various technical skills and specialties that we offer. They have cumulatively answered over 10,000 queries from students, faculty, and staff. Yes, it's kind of amazing, but again, they are the front line of the service. Several of our student specialists have received NYU IT Student Employee Awards and recognition, so excellence awards, distinguished service awards for aligning with the values of our IT department. Additionally, over the past 4 years, we've had our program alum come back to our careers and data panel during Love Data Week and talk with our patrons and our current students about the careers that they can look for in data. So we're like, again, the pipeline, right? We send them out into the workforce and they come back and talk to the folks who are looking to go into the workforce and get those connections. So what's next? Continuous evolution, further strengthening our proactive support because we want to continue to meet the patrons where they are. Skill development, you come in with Python skills, you're going to leave with Python, Qualtrics, GIS, and soft skills. You're going to know how to communicate because it's increasingly important to have those kind of soft skills as we go into the workforce. And interdisciplinary collaboration, working with colleagues across NYU schools, departments, libraries, and RIT, research instructional technology, to develop more comprehensive support for the NYU community. And with that, I'll hand it off to Shannon.
All right, so we're going to get back into NC State. And so at NC State, we offer data science support in 3 kind of main venues. You can email us. We have a shared inbox that all librarians and students see. It's getdatahelp@ncsu.edu, so kind of like an easy to remember name. And we kind of appoint the person who best meets the needs of that request to that request. Students, faculty, staff can also make appointments directly with our student consultants, so they're able to see the availabilities, the skills that they have, and just book directly either in person at one of the libraries or online via Zoom. Or they can drop into the spaces. When the spaces are staffed, they can come in and kind of have that direct, urgent kind of data science emergency support there. Our team supports kind of the stages of the data science lifecycle of finding and collecting data, software and environment support, preparing data, analyzing data, and then that visualization and interpretation stage. And again, this is for a range of tools and approaches. It's based on the staff that we have, so our students come with those individualized skills that they can apply to different domains. It's for all affiliates and disciplines and at no cost to patrons. We also have kind of our landing page is go.ncsu.edu/getdatahelp, and that's where you can find the place to email us or book an appointment or reserve one of those computer workstations. So the people are the most important part of our program. We always say this, and I think Michelle, Mara, and I always like to talk about our students are amazing. But then they also say like amazing stuff like this too. So this is a quote from one of our research consultants about the work that we do really, right? So they have these really technical skills, but the main thing that they're doing is communicating with people, figuring out what their real question is and being able to help them sort out an approach so they can tackle their research, right? So when we're looking at the NC State community, so the population of NC State and the population that our student consultants come from, we see it matches up pretty well. So we're a big engineering school, ag school, so we see that in the NC State population, and same with our consultants. These are consultants over the past couple of years. You may notice that College of Science seems like way more than we have in terms of population, but that's because of our statistics PhD students. So we hire students from the statistics PhD students. They're from College of Science, but they have very applied skills, right? So they can apply statistical approaches to any domain. In addition to our students, we also have faculty librarians that come from a range of academic backgrounds, including engineering, statistics, information science, marine ecology, and geographic information sciences. And so this is really crucial for supervision. So you have really technical students and needing support on the things that they're working on. And equally, being librarians, we have the flexibility and agility to address this breadth of different needs, also while understanding the research process, right? So I can say I've sat across on the other side of the table before, struggled through some of my own research, and so I'm able to communicate with others about their own research and hopefully get them to the finish line. Some quick numbers. I know that we're running out of time here. So far this year, we're going to match our numbers from last year. We had over 2,000 requests from across campus last year. Majority of that is through email, so able to answer those questions through email or in-person and online appointments. We see patrons from the College of Natural Resources, Ag and Life Science and Engineering making up the greatest amount, but again, we see everyone across the university coming to use our services. And this is always the most shocking thing I see. Graduate students request support among affiliate types more than anyone else, right? So you can see it's like a lot of graduate students. And this sets up a really nice peer-to-peer learning model, right? So we have graduate students working as consultants, graduate students needing that support. And so it kind of makes that low pressure environment where they're coming in, getting support from their peer, rather than maybe an advisor that they don't get along with. So lessons learned, I think this kind of shares for Michelle as well. Our program is much newer than Michelle's program, but starting small and growing, I know that we both talked about, we have data labs and 9 students and they get 20 hours a week. That seems like a lot, right? But you can really start small. Our second location was a table at first, so just kind of having a table set up in the library, a student working there and seeing what you get, and then growing your program from there. There's benefits to cross-campus collaboration, not doing the same things. Student support and compensation is really essential. That's something that we learned, especially at NC State. And again, next steps, assessing the high impact learning experience and enhancing professional development opportunities for students. If you want to learn more, there's a bunch of resources here on any models in data science consulting and some papers from some of our groups. Again, plugging our book that's coming out from CRC Press. It's forthcoming, I don't know when there's a date. And some final thoughts. So data science support in the libraries provides a way to kind of reach across disciplines in an open way. Leveraging student employees can benefit both them and their affiliates. You need to iterate and refine your offerings, and the demand for data science support is only growing. We have thanks to our collaborators on the books and in our departments, and the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation for funding this work. And if you have any questions, save them for the end, and you'll have to start. And there's a QR code to the slide deck if y'all want to have that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everybody, and thank you for spending some time with us today to talk about service models for data. It's thrilling and important stuff, right? I'm Lauren Monte. I am the Associate University Librarian for Research and Learning at Yale, and I'm here with my wonderful colleague, Rebecca Dikow, who is Director, Research Innovation and Student Success, and Mark's Library. Today, we are going to be discussing how Yale Library is navigating a significant strategic challenge, one that perhaps you're facing as well, which is how to quickly and sustainably scale up data-intensive and computational research support. Again, many thanks to Shannon, Michelle, and Mara for offering such innovative approaches to solving this problem, and we hope that we can maybe offer a little bit of inspiration as well. We're going to be discussing the one organization approach that we have pursued, and that rests on deep partnerships and collaborative service models. Oh, I need to start advancing. And collaborative service models with other research support units across the university. We're really excited about this approach because we've seen how it can extend everyone's reach and it can improve data-intensive research and learning across the board. We'll also be sure to share some of our success measures so you can kind of understand why we think this is heading in the right direction. So Yale Library is an institution with deep roots in the humanities and extraordinary special collections built over more than 3 centuries. And our organizational structure has been formed to support these areas of excellence. So even now, if you look at our ratio of librarians to students, for example, you'll see that we have a ton more support in place for those in the humanities. And as recently as 3 years ago, most of our librarian roles in science and social science were selector-type roles with a focus on collection development rather than providing research support services. And I don't think this is an uncommon thing across research libraries, but sometimes it's good to look at the numbers and go, oh, and that's kind of what it felt like here a little bit. And at the same time, over the past decade, we've seen growth in numbers of majors and degrees conferred in science and social science at both the undergraduate and graduate levels. And like all of you, we've seen growth in the use of sort of data and computational methods across disciplines, right? So when Rebecca and I arrived at Yale, which is both within the past 2.5-ish years, it kind of put us in this interesting position where we needed to rapidly develop capacity to support data-intensive research. Now, certainly, we have reorganized and we have brought in new roles and we will continue to do so going forward, but that isn't enough to meet the need. As you all know in this room, organizational restructuring is slow. It takes years, not days or weeks, and we can't wait to build the perfect organizational structure before we start meeting our user needs. So we have to think creatively about how to expand our reach and capabilities while we're simultaneously engaging in the longer-term work of reshaping our structure for the current moment. So our answer to this has been what we're calling a one organization strategy. So rather than trying to hire our way to comprehensive coverage within the library alone, which would be impossibly expensive and slow, we've embraced deep partnerships with IT and research centers that have come out of Yale's science strategy and Yale's institutional commitment to supporting data-intensive research. So our key insight really is that if we can enable work and people to move seamlessly across organizational boundaries, we can be more effective. What this looks like in practice is sharing positions through dual reporting and dotted line relationships, coordinating hiring across units to ensure we're building complementary skill sets rather than duplicating expertise, and designing workflows where expertise rather than organizational home determine who does what when. This approach lets us collectively increase our headcount across Yale without each unit having to go through the lengthy process of getting new lines approved. So Rebecca is going to talk about the meat of this and give us some examples of what this looks like in practice.
I'll be talking about two of our partnerships with faculty-driven research centers at Yale, the Data Intensive Social Science Center and the Yale Center for Geospatial Solutions. I'll refer to the first as DISC and shorthand. So DISC opened in 2022 and the Geospatial Center opened in 2024. So these are both very recent. For DISC, I'd like to talk through some examples of our collaborations and touch points, including data acquisition, the Yale Dataverse, research support for the use of licensed data sets, and our open and reproducible research program, which is just starting. And for the Geospatial Center, I'll talk about a shared research support role and scaling up training, and soon to launch geocoding infrastructure. I think the bottom line with these partnerships, not to bury the lead, but just to sort of say that we are trying to play to each other's strengths and make each other more effective in serving our audiences by working together. So DISC is Yale's hub for data-intensive social science support. In terms of data acquisition, the library licenses data sets, many data sets, for university-wide use. Most of these are probably being used by social science researchers. So this is a big kind of way that we're working together. The library focuses on data sets that are in wide use. So DISC can license data sets for individual faculty members or those with narrower use cases. So we can sort of shift researchers over to DISC when they come to us with a request for something very niche, when it feels like maybe that doesn't belong with the library. It's important to work together on this so researchers get consistent messaging and support. So we are always thinking about that researcher experience. So if they come to the library and we're not the right place to necessarily purchase that data set, we'd like to have a really nice warm handoff to DISC and not bounce people around and make them feel like no one's helping them. So this is work that we're continuing to do to make sure that we're being responsive to requests and also putting them in the right place as quickly as possible so the researcher doesn't feel unsupported. The Yale Dataverse was launched in a collaboration with the Data Intensive Social Science Center in 2023. Now this has become a library managed service, but we really relied on DISC initially, and the faculty that DISC serves were volunteered to be sort of initial curators of the Yale Dataverse, our early adopters and users who helped us work with library IT to drive the right kind of functionality that we needed to focus on. And so it was really helpful to have sort of friendly users in the system early, and these were our target audience initially. And now we're broadening this across Yale, but it was really, really essential to have that sort of disciplinary focus at first. So the Yale Dataverse is a generalist repository for researchers to deposit research data most often associated with publications. And I think for the social sciences, this is a space where there often aren't discipline-specific repositories. We're also collaborating right now, this should be finished by the end of the month, migrating 144 data sets from the Institution for Social and Policy Studies, which are currently on a Drupal website, to Dataverse. So that's another sort of a nice collaboration that we've worked on with DISC. Here's a screenshot of our Yale Dataverse. We're also we talked about acquisition a little bit, but we're also really focused on how do we help researchers use these licensed data sets, many of which are large and difficult to move around and have may have sensitive data, have a lot of potential for needing access controls. So we just started a pilot of Redivis, which is a research data platform to host selected library licensed data sets. Redivis provides the ability for us to manage these data in, I think, a way that is both compliant with everything we need to be compliant with, but also researcher-friendly. So it provides the ability to provide fine-grained data and access and export controls. It's HIPAA and NIST 800-171 compliant. And it loads the structured data into Google Cloud's BigQuery so that the data can be queried in place. Currently, we have been providing access to the data present on, local storage at Yale, which requires folks to mount drives to their local machine or to transfer things to the Yale Center for Research Computing in a way that can be quite inefficient and sometimes impossible when the data sets are really large. So this is a great way that researchers will hopefully no longer have to move the data around. Redivis also, underneath our subscription to Redivis, we can have multiple organizations. So library data can remain separate with library data, but we can allow other organizations at Yale to join and manage their own data within this framework. It also allows researchers to save and share workflows. So for some of our licensed data sets, a fair bit of reformatting or work needs to be done, data cleaning to make them actually useful. So now we can sort of port those workflows to Redivis so that it will be reproducible and documented what's been done to the raw data. So we're not in a space where there's multiple copies of things that different things have been done to. So it really allows us to present to the researchers a very clear set of data sets. I think the benefit to housing this within the library is that we can share the best practices as other organizations come on board with this system. And you'll see a screenshot. This is like really, we're just starting this work, and I took this before there were any data or anything. So we have now a Yale Library organization and a DISC organization. DISC will put the data that they license in their organization, but they'll be accessible from the same place so that, again, the researcher experience is prioritized. Okay, and now I'll talk a little bit about how we're collaborating on the open and reproducible research program. So research support staff at the library and DISC have come together to talk about how we think about scaling support for reproducible research at Yale. Just this fall, we co-sponsored 3 events for social scientists toward more reproducible research, why and how, tips from a data archive, preparing replication packages, and basics of research data management. We are going to be continuing to offer these and also not just focus on social science, but bring in research support from other parts of Yale. And recent conversations have focused a lot on AI, as you might imagine. There are many researchers exploring agentic AI. There have been some recent papers in the social sciences in particular that folks are interested in. And we're also thinking about how we approach research support for researchers that come to us with AI-generated code, because it's really kind of a different approach, and how we'll sort of evaluate what folks are coming in with and how we can help them. Okay, now I'll talk about the Yale Center for Geospatial Solutions. So this collaboration is even more recent than the collaboration with DISC, since it is a newer center. But the library has had a GIS librarian role for more than a decade, so we're not new to supporting geospatial work, but it's always been just a single librarian. When YCGS opened, this role transitioned to being a dual report between the library and YCGS. This has been really helpful because it allows us to really stay in close contact across both initiatives, even when there's not a direct collaboration, and avoid duplication of efforts. So some of the major activities within geospatial support are training. So we have thousands of users of our Esri ArcGIS products, and the library has been providing for a number of years twice annual GIS Accelerator, which is a 5-day workshop. So it's 40 hours of workshop time. We hold these in January and June, right after the end of the semester or the beginning of the semester. So students, faculty, and staff participate in these. As we've partnered with YCGS over the past year and a half or so, demand has significantly increased. These workshops always, they're free, but they sold out within, a day or so. Now we're getting 3 or 4 times what we can accommodate, like immediately signing up. I think partly this is just because of the outreach. So by co-listing things, by reaching our network in different ways, different networks of folks, we're getting more and more interest. It is also true that geospatial tools are just all over the place now and not concentrated in one discipline. So we're getting folks from many, many departments across campus. So this iteration next month, we're going to try doubling the enrollment and see how that goes. We have a bigger space. So we've hired more graduate students as helpers. It's a fairly high-touch workshop. So this is kind of piloting to see basically what's the upper limit of how many folks we can accommodate at a time. And we've also, through the collaboration, developed a new remote sensing accelerator in the same style, this 5-day intensive work, and that's being offered in May this year, I think. So the last sort of piece of the geospatial collaboration I'd like to talk about is building a new infrastructure to support geocoding. So geocoding requests, where folks come with a address or description of an address and would like coordinate data. These are increasing rapidly and have historically required library support to provide access to our licensed ArcGIS StreetMap Premium data or Esri credits to do that in the Esri cloud. So we are working on a deployment to sort of change this model to host endpoints allowing users self-service access to these data. So we see this as sort of certainly part of the library's role because it's a sort of a licensed data access, and we'd like to make it as available as possible to the community. This, again, is focused on improving the researcher experience. They shouldn't have to ask us a million questions before they get to work, and it reduces our reliance on Esri credits, which we, could very easily blow through just a single researcher's need for geocoding. I know Lauren talked a little bit about roles, but just to sort of highlight, in 2023, we had in the library 4 staff plus me as the director focused on this kind of work. And DISC had at that time 2 faculty co-directors, an executive director, and 2 staff, and YCGS was not yet launched. But as of today, we've added the library has added 3 additional data-related research roles, statistical support, digital humanities librarian, and a research data management librarian. And DISC has added 5 additional research support roles, which provide like a synergistic kind of research support to what our team does. And the Geospatial Center hired their executive director and 2 research support staff, plus the shared role at the library. So there's been a lot of change in terms of personnel. I'm almost finished here, but I'd like to talk a little bit about the sort of library strengths and the research center strengths. So why we sort of see this as being an effective way to partner. The faculty-led research centers have by definition, very close communication with faculty about emerging needs. So they're hearing from them all the time. They also have the ability to create these discipline-specific functional roles that the library, wouldn't necessarily have the resources to do. So things like people like data architects or research software engineers, they're able to sort of create these roles, maybe even temporary roles, more easily than we can. And they can be more agile with providing some bespoke services that if the library got into that business, it'd be really hard to get out of it. And in terms of the library's strengths, we have the track record of scaling infrastructure to meet broad needs. So we are working with all constituent groups across campus, not just faculty facing. And we provide the instruction from, foundational data literacy to advanced methods, and we can help scaffold this work because we're sort of seeing folks all across this, spectrum, and we can provide learning pathways. We also have experience connecting researchers to units and resources across campus, so we can help folks find where they need to go if it's not obvious. And then we'll just talk really briefly about our indicators of success. So we think by having the Yale Dataverse, having piloting Redivis, we've kind of made progress in building solutions to what have been persistent challenges with research data. Over the past decade, there have been a lot of initiatives thinking about, the research data problem. It's a big problem. It hits everyone on campus, but it's often like no one fully owns it. So we, over the past year, we've worked with library IT, health sciences IT, DISC and YCGS and the Yale Center for Research Computing to really kind of come together and define better roles and responsibilities for this work, and centering the Redivis project with the Dataverse and Dataverse in the library, I think, is a really big step forward in the library providing leadership. We've also begun to coordinate, think about coordinating, coordinate hiring to strategize with DISC and YCGS as we think about future roles. So we don't want to duplicate roles, but how can we work together to provide complementary roles? And then we are seeing increased buy-in from deans and department chairs as the library being considered a strategic partner. Do we want to, Lauren will come and have some conclusions, or we're all set?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And we'd like to just thank folks at DISC and YCGS and the library for all their work on these partnerships. And now we're open to Q&A. Thank you.
Hi there, thanks for the talk to all of you. My question is for Yale. You're talking about standing up a Dataverse instance, and now you're bringing in the Redivis data platform. And I'm curious if you're thinking about how those two might interact or integrate or not.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I think this is a challenging communication piece to our researchers in a way, because what we've done is like take the research data lifecycle and kind of flatten it a bit. And so Dataverse we see as that sort of end, the sort of sharing of completed projects. We encourage folks to put a CC0 license on their data. This is for open things. I mean, there's certain cases where you might need a restriction, but the vast majority of the time, this is open. So for redivists, we're thinking of that sort of on the other end of the spectrum. So these are the data inputs. They're data that often need access restrictions, and that are the either data that we purchase or potentially some raw data generated by, like we could imagine, like sequencing cores and other folks wanting to put their data in there. But it's sort of at that beginning of the research data lifecycle. Now, it is a circle, so there could potentially be some overlaps eventually, but we're trying to think of them as that in that sort of discrete way, about like sort of sharing active research data, or like the pre-active research zone, and then the Dataverse is the completed products. So, it would be wonderful if there was one thing to, serve all of that, but there's just complicated needs. And Redivist having that connection to BigQuery and to compute, I think, is the big piece that will really make it exciting for researchers to use.
Thank you all so much for your presentations. I'm curious, and I thought of this question as that you folks from Yale were presenting, but I think it might apply to some others. As you're talking about some of these partnerships on campus, I know that at my campus, some of our research centers have a very different funding model and mandate than we do in the library. And so they're often supposed to be self-sustaining and self-generating. And that can cause some dilemmas, I think, in terms of those sorts of partnerships and how we pursue them. And I'm just curious if you have encountered that and any strategies for helping to maintain those really strong partnerships despite the differences.
As Shannon mentioned, at NC State, our unit collaborates with the Data Science and AI Academy, which is a cross-university entity. We collaborate. How's that? Better? Oh, that's very close. So at NC State, we collaborate with the Data Science and AI Academy on data science consulting, and academy is not a standard term, I know, so it's a cross-university entity that's non-degree granting, and they have a different sort of funding model and maybe some differences in approach to work where, the libraries were typically looking at offering services at no cost, and not in our organization particularly focused on self-sustaining. So I think just kind of being really open with your collaborators about what you can be flexible on and what are maybe more firm lines has been important, and just working through that a little bit. So we've had differences in funding, but you saw we still collaborate on grants, where we had a grant from the Sloan Foundation for some of this work with them. And we've had similar discussions about patron privacy, which is both a value and a requirement for us that's not necessarily permeated everywhere. So just trying to share our values. And like Shannon mentioned, that's a really important part of the consulting program that we work on together.
So our research centers are centrally, are funded through the VPR's office, and so they're part of the academic side of things, and they don't have any sort of requirement to self-sustain. They're funded. We're very lucky in that way, and in fact, I think you mentioned this, that they have a lot more freedom with their funds in a way that the library doesn't. We have a lot more historic endowments. We are carving out money for data right now versus sort of having a lot of flexibility, and our partners in the research centers can kind of go in ways that we can't, and that's been actually a real benefit for us. This feels like a very Yale story, and I apologize for that.
Hi, my question is actually about workshops and multi-day intensive trainings. I run a center where we do both of those things, and have noticed that the attrition between registration and actual delivery of the instruction has increased quite a bit since the pandemic. And I guess I sort of have two questions here. First, what have you noticed in terms of your workshops and your intensive trainings? And second of all, what strategies, if you have been seeing a similar trend, what strategies have you deployed to sort of make sure that seats get filled with interested parties? And yeah, just I'm grasping at straws here, man. I'm looking like it feels like it's just gotten worse and worse. So I'm interested in what you've experienced as well as what strategies you've deployed on that front.
So at NYU, we've also seen some attrition in our open to everyone workshops that we host at data services in the library. I think our intensive programs have had a better shot at getting a better attendance because we're kind of like preaching to the choir that like really want to be there rather than to the general audience who might have some interest when they sign up on Monday and then lose interest by Friday when the workshop happens. Also collaborating with the partners, like collaborating with instructors, professors, will come to your class and give an embedded tutorial in your class. It's a command audience. They can't leave if they want credit, but then that's the way it's like you kind of hook them and say, okay, you can do more things with us in our other workshops at data services or other tutorials. So I think getting in tight with the department chairs, even with the academic clubs. Some of our student consultants are presidents of their clubs at their different schools, and they get their folks to like organize a tutorial and we'll come to them. So working with interested parties first to kind of deliver the programming can then get other patrons interested in coming to our regularly scheduled programming.
I agree with Michelle. I will say for the geospatial accelerator, we don't see a lot of attrition, and I think that's because first we ask folks to identify the data set already, and they meet with the instructor beforehand to talk about whether because it's basically brings them from the beginning to the end of the analysis they want to do, and they have to bring their own data. So they have this like data readiness interview that I think really helps like cement how, this is real and it's important and they've already invested some time. And I think maybe geospatial is a little bit specific in the sense that there's just so many folks who are like, I know I need to learn this. I need this now for this project. We see it in the applications when we have to turn people away. It's like, I'm sorry, we just can't accommodate. They just like, I need this for this course or I need this for my PhD. And it's so, that feels like an area where we don't see that problem. I think workshops more broadly can be really challenging for some of the more sort of generic things that people need to learn, but getting the word out. And we're trying to increasingly work with faculty directly to like, for your course, they're bringing us needs, so how can we work with you to make sure we're getting that in front of the students? But it is a challenge. For the geospatial one, yes, it's fairly lightweight, but it does require folks to identify why they're looking to do it and what data set they have. Yeah.
Hi, thank you all for your presentation. I thought it was great. I have two quick questions. I don't know if I heard correctly, but do you charge for your accelerators in the institutes? And the other question is, are all of these trainings, workshops, or institutes accelerators in person, face-to-face?
Our geospatial accelerator is free for participants, and it is done in a hybrid way. But I think so you can participate fully remotely. So we have some graduate consultant helpers or teaching assistants online and some in person. And so it's variable, but we kind of ask people to pick a modality rather than jump in and out. So there's some kind of lecture time and then some project time. And so I think folks can switch out a little bit, but yes, we do provide a hybrid option for that.
So I have sort of a leading question for Michelle, and then I would love to to learn more about your approaches as well. So when we were talking about, budgets and how different units have to approach funding themselves, it got me to thinking about some of the work that I know that you all did at NYU to kind of create a cohesive service model, even though you had staffing coming from two different units, and really like align your philosophies and share space, office space, and that sort of thing. And so I'm wondering if you would say a little bit about that, and then if the others of you might talk about like the social parts of building these collaborations, and if you're sharing spaces, like things you've learned, advice you'd give the rest of us, that sort of thing. Thanks.
So Kara's cheating because she was there during a lot of this. But yeah, so data services is a joint libraries and IT service and department, and it's very different. There's faculty librarian and there's administrative professional staff. I am not a librarian. Surprise, surprise, all of you, I'm sure, the way I'm talking on here. I am a professional staff. I am a GIS specialist. I have that kind of training. It has been amazing to work with my faculty librarian colleagues because to get their perspective on things, to learn more about the research data lifecycle, I didn't know it when I came in. I had some training from school. The social hierarchy that could exist, and I'm sure it does exist at some institutions, does not exist in that same sense at data services. Our joint is really joint, and I really appreciate that. We do share space. Some of my colleagues are particularly IT funded. Their jobs are IT. I am the product of both. I'm a half funded by the libraries, half funded by IT. The most wanted stepchild of all. Okay, so I get the benefits of both worlds in that sense. It's been very interesting. It creates a lot of debate and a lot of questions about how we provide services, what kind of services that we provide, and the treatment that we give our patrons. Everyone puts their 2 cents in, and we get a full dollar. So it's really an excellent way to run this kind of program. I'll let others go ahead if I answered.
I think it's really fun for us to collaborate. There are times when it's challenging. We work really closely with the faculty director for consulting from the Data Science and AI Academy, and she presented here with me 2 years ago, and we spoke very openly, so I feel comfortable saying this again, where, we've had some cultural clashes where she's a faculty member based in an academic department, the Department of Statistics. We're in the libraries. We are faculty in the libraries, but non-tenure track, contract-based faculty, so it's just a different vibe, but that we've worked really hard to learn what each other needs. So you see, we don't call the data science consulting program a service because that's a institutional catastrophe for someone based in an academic department. So we don't do that. She was very kind to learn about, like I mentioned, patron privacy and the values of that. It just took some time, but that we really identified things we love working on, and this project that we worked on with Shannon and Michelle on models in data science consulting and using graduate students was something that we all really had shared passion and investment in. And so it really, I think, brings a lot of us together, and collaborators from other institutions as well, of course, with Michelle, where we just care so much about doing the work this way, and that helps. The Data Science and AI Academy is physically located in the libraries, but our collaborator still sits in a different building in her academic department at home. So we just make time to see each other physically and virtually, and it's great.
I'll add to, before we did the official collaboration with the Data Science and AI Academy, we were both doing consulting, but different types of consulting. So I think it made it really confusing to patrons, am I a longer term project? Am I a shorter term project? And so having one place where you can get support and be directed to the right place, I think is really useful. Same thing with positions. We had 4 different position types when we hadn't collaborated, student position types, yeah. And that was really hard to manage. So it was were you working for the Data Science Academy? Were you working for the libraries? And so when you do collaborate, I think it makes it easier for both patrons and your student workers.
I know it's me and lunch. I'm between you and lunch, so I'll just be quick and say a couple of things that we've learned. We've tried a lot of different things: dotted line, solid line, sharing space, not sharing space. And there's not a silver bullet here. I think a lot of it depends on, in some ways, the personality of your staff members, sort of where they're at, understanding the nature of the service model, and sort of figuring out what's right for everybody involved. But I think the most important thing is that we all meet all the time. Like, you and the executive directors of those centers meet all the time. I meet with them. Our UL meets with them in different ways. And we have this sort of, it's not just happening in one place. This sort of integration is happening across the board. And I think that's the sustaining part here, and remaining resilient enough to say, okay, fine, yeah, you don't have to sit there anymore, or we'll do it this way, fine. But the one thing I think would help us a lot is a single ticketing system rather than 17 different ones that we're trying to make
We
work.
haven't solved that yet.
Thank you all for
Thanks,
coming.
everyone.
Appreciate it.